Hello everyone. Thank you for coming along. Great to see people here. So I think there's some people still joining, so we will let them sneak into the back seats while we get started. And we've got an hour together looking at AI and what's new with AI, what this means for you as an individual, as a leader, as well as what it means for you in your organization. So let's get into this. Let's talk about what is coming up with AI and what you need to think about when you're looking at AI as integrating it into your team, your organization, your business, wherever you go. So my 3 standard rules of engagement, and I can see some familiar faces here, so you'll know this very well, that the first thing I want you to do is to give you some things to think about. So I would love you to walk away with some ideas that you can put into action straight away. So look at whatever you can do to eliminate any distractions and interruptions as we work through this hour. I'm recording this, so you'll get a copy of the recording later. If you are only watching the recording, then hello to you. You'll miss out on some of the interaction, but it does give you the chance to review it later as well. The second thing is be playful in this session. So I've got some questions for you. I'll stop and you can ask me questions in the chat as we go. So feel free to just type in the chat as we go. And then when I stop for questions, I'll look in the chat first to see what questions there are. So please take the opportunity to do that and play along as well. You'll get more value from this if you do engage, if you're here live, and other people in the room will as well. But the most important thing is I want to give you some things that you can take away and put into action. And ideally, things that you can do straight away rather than having to wait 3 months before you see any results from it. Okay, so I've seen some people using emojis already. So let me ask you the question, how do you feel about AI? And respond with an emoji. So use the little emoji reactions at the bottom of the screen there and just let me know how you feel about AI. Okay, so there's there's a variety of responses, which is good to see. I always like to see that. Good, and many of them are positive, but not all of them, which is good. So thank you for sharing honestly, because AI keeps changing and is going to keep changing even as we go along. So it's good. Like whatever you feel is good. I'd like you by the end of this session to feel a little bit more optimistic, regardless of what you're already feeling about it. Okay, so the other question I've got for you is, if I asked you again using your emojis, how much do you use AI? I'd like to know what you would respond. So again, use your emojis, and this is obviously very subjective, but I'm keen to know, like, how much are you using AI at the moment? So if you're using it a lot, you might put a big thumbs up or a smiley emoji, and if you're not using it very much, then it might be much lower, of course. And again, whatever you put in there is valid. Okay, so some thumbs up, some neutrals that I can see. Okay, and I really want to make the point that the amount that you use AI is not necessarily a reflection of the value that you're getting from AI. And we'll get into this and how you measure AI and how you encourage your team to use AI more. You may have seen some stories in the news recently. This is a couple of stories that came out in April at the graduation ceremonies in the USA. They're getting to the end of their academic year, and these guest speakers who were invited to speak at graduation ceremonies, they were booed by the students, the graduating students. So here's an example of a speaker who was talking about AI as the next industrial revolution. This is the former CEO of Google, and he was also talking about AI is going to come for, it's going to change the world. And there were students who were booing out loud, booing these graduation speakers. So I'd like to know why you think they were booing these speakers. So if you can just type in the chat and I'll read out some of the comments as they come through. Why do you think that they were booing these speakers? So let me see what people are saying. So fear. So fear of what? Like that AI is going to take their jobs? Or let's see what else people are saying. Fear of the unknown, scared they won't have a job. Worried they won't have jobs in the future. They're just paid for an education they've been told they won't need. Disrespect for human intellect and endeavor. Yep, uncertainty about job situation in the future. Scared that it will do a better job. And concern about the wider impacts of AI. And these are all true, right? I think one of the other reasons that people are unhappy with AI and students are unhappy with AI is because they realize that their universities, who are supposed to be preparing them for life afterwards, including jobs, just haven't been preparing them for AI. So many universities, not all of them, but many universities, I would even say most universities, just are not doing enough to prepare their students for an AI-ready world. It's the same with schools as well, but I've got a lot of sympathy for schools because teachers are quite constrained by curriculum. Universities can set their own curriculum, and yet they are not adapting fast enough. So they're still saying that using AI is cheating or a violation of academic integrity, and they still have assessments and exams where students are not allowed to use AI. And in fact, they should be doing the opposite. They should be preparing their students for an AI-ready world. And the reason I'm sharing this is because I think the same's true for many organizations where there are employees who might not be booing you, but they might also still be thinking very seriously about whether their employer is preparing them for using AI. And I know I work with lots of organizations who are doing a lot to elevate AI competency in their people, but sometimes that's not always the case, right? And you know this, and I think you know this. So when you're thinking about an AI-enabled future, think about what you're doing to bring your people along on the journey. And this is something that I've been saying for ages. So I looked back when I was preparing for today, I looked back at some of my older presentations around AI. And when we say older, this is like, this was early 2023, so 3.5 years ago, soon after the launch of ChatGPT. So I ran a presentation, and these are 3 of the questions that I ask. I won't ask you to respond in the chat, but if I asked you to think for yourself, what are you doing with this? How would you rate yourself? So we have a plan to train our employees on AI and how it will impact their role. So this is, I was asking, I ran a session like this 3.5 years ago and asked you to rate yourself. So just think for yourself, like, are you doing this? Here's another question. We encourage our leaders and managers to experiment with AI in their teams. And I wonder whether you're doing this. And the third one here, we've identified AI champions who can lead the way in AI. So again, I'm not going to ask you to share here, but reflect. Are you doing these things? And I was encouraging people to do this 3 years ago, and some organizations have done this and many haven't. And I don't just mean organizations, so leaders in your teams. Have you done this? Another thing that I reported on this, like again, 3.5 years ago, I was saying here are some of the jobs that are at risk from AI by 2025. So remember, this was 3 years ago. I was saying in 2 years' time, many of these jobs will be at risk from AI. And when I shared this slide in my presentations, people would come up to me and say, no, that's not going to happen. Look, it might happen with like manufacturing jobs, assembly line jobs, because robots are going to be doing the work that humans are. It might happen with drivers, but all of these other jobs, this knowledge work, is not going to be replaced by AI. And yet, if you look at the things that are not highlighted on this slide, so many of them now are being definitely augmented by AI, and in a lot of cases being replaced by AI. Okay, now I'm not giving a judgment about whether that's good or bad. I'm just saying this is reality. So it used to be thinking that robots are coming for physical jobs, but of course we know now that AI is coming for knowledge work as well. And I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but I wonder whether you're ready for that. Another thing, this is actually a bit older. I was speaking at the Australian Private Hospitals Association conference. This was in 2015. This is 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, and this is even before we had ChatGPT and generative AI. And I quoted Vinod Khosla here. He's a tech entrepreneur, and he invests in a lot of medical and biotech things. And he was saying at the time, in 2015, he said that a lot of the changes that are going to happen in healthcare are going to be the result of AI. He didn't say that, but he said data science and software, which is now what we're calling AI, rather than medical breakthroughs. And this is true. It's already happening. I'll show you a couple of examples of this later. But again, those leaders in hospitals, private hospitals and healthcare leaders they were just pushing back against it, and they said that that's not the case. Like, healthcare and medicine is always going to be advanced by biology and research in biology. And yet we're seeing now that AI is having a huge impact here. So the reason I'm sharing that here is, even if you're not in healthcare, just keep in mind that AI is going to continue to transform everything that we do. Okay, so a little bit of a warning for the future of AI. There's this quotation which I love by an American author, Upton Sinclair. And he said this: it's difficult to get somebody to understand something when their salary depends on them not understanding it. Okay, so it's a little bit cynical, but I just wonder, and I'm not going to ask you to share again in the chat, but is there anything that you've put blinkers on that is coming in the future, and you kind of know it, but you don't want to admit it because it could be your job that's at risk? Okay, so just keep that in mind. So if I'm looking at my job speaking at conferences, is it possible that conference speakers are going to be replaced by AI in the future? Well, the answer is yes. It's already happening. There is Sophia the robot, who's a humanoid kind of robot, who's being booked to speak at conferences and do keynote presentations, when in fact they should be booking me. Right? And it's not because she's better than I am or funnier than I am, but she's giving the same sort of perspective into the future that I might be giving in a very different way. But this is the case, and I wonder whether this is true for you as well. Okay, so I'm kind of giving you the negative side of it, but I want to give you the big picture perspective before we dig into some practical things. Okay, so I'm just seeing some questions are coming in the chat, or comments coming in the chat. So this is good. So like Matthew says, I think part of the fear surrounding AI is the pace of progression. Yes. Yeah, and Alex says, being in my mid-40s, I fear that if I can't use AI properly, I won't get a job at all. Yeah, it's going to be so embedded. And my feeling is that some jobs are absolutely going to be replaced by AI. Most of them are going to be augmented by AI. So we need to know, most knowledge work is going to be augmented by AI. So we need to know how to use AI more effectively. There's a fear that we come to rely on AI and the pricing model. Oh, so Alex, I know what you're talking about here, that not-for-profits may not be able to afford it. Okay, so let's look at what's coming up with AI in the future. And I want to just start with talking about the fact that this is, even though we're talking about technology, it's really got to be about people. About 3 months ago, I ran one of these sessions about building a culture of change. And there are these 6 levels. I'm not going to go through all 6 of them here in detail. You can go back and look at the recording of that. But let me put an AI lens on AI filter on this. So as I go through this, just think for yourself, which of these 6 cultures are we at with our team when it comes to AI? So are people resistant to AI? They're just pushing back against it and they really don't want anything to do with it. Sometimes they're even sabotaging your AI initiatives. So this is the lowest level. The next one is they're not resistant to it, but they might be reluctant. So they go, okay, well, if I have to, if you drag me kicking and screaming, then I'll be okay with it. The next one is compliant. So this is where people are saying, okay, look, I know AI is coming, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. Okay, so I'm not pushing back against it. I'm not keen on it either. So those 3, if you're in one of those 3 cultures, you might be surviving with your AI adoption, but you're not really thriving yet until you start getting to the stage where people are proactive about AI. They're kind of interested, they're curious, they're kind of engaged. They're not using it a lot, but at least they're starting to use it. And the next level is where they feel empowered. So not only are they starting to use it and give you ideas, but they feel empowered to do things themselves using AI, knowing that they're doing things that are aligned with your values, doing things that are aligned with your processes, doing things that are aligned with your policies. And the last level is that they're inspired. Okay, so they see that AI can make a huge difference to what's happening in their world, and they see that there's some huge opportunities here to actually, but in the extreme end, save the world using AI. And there are organizations that are doing that. Not every AI organization is bad, and there's lots of examples of AI being used to really improve the world. I'll show you a couple of examples of them a bit later. So if I asked you, actually a couple of people have been answering already, so if I asked you in the chat, where are you at with AI, where do you think you are? Which of those 6 levels do you think your culture's at? Louise says we have pockets across all of these. Oh, good to see you here, Louise. Yep. I think that's true. Like you might have that. So some people are saying proactive, which is good. If your name Elizabeth saying proactive. Yeah, and Elizabeth, I know you as well. I think that, yeah, that's probably true from what I know of you. Somewhere between compliant and proactive, Fiona says, proactive. Companies inspired. Yeah, and I think, Elizabeth, I think that's true for you, right? So your organization is definitely inspired about changing the world in the education sector, and I just wonder whether the AI is on track with that as well. And there's some people saying reluctant, proactive, but not across the whole department, and surviving. Yeah, so I always think my policy around AI is got to be about people first, and technology second. And this has been the case even before AI was the next big thing. If anyone's been involved in digital transformation processes, you know they're never going to work unless you bring your people along on the journey. So as much as we're talking about AI today, it's also about this, building a culture of change, and it's about your culture. And if you don't have the right culture in place, it's very difficult to get AI to work. Okay, so as much as we're talking about the technology today, we're also talking about the culture. I'm seeing more comments coming in as well. Great, thank you. Okay, so this is all a big part of a bigger conversation around the future of work, and I've talked about this again. I've done presentations about this recently, and they're recorded, so you can go to my website and watch the recordings. But briefly, I think when you talk about the future of work, think about these 4 levels. So when you think about the future and the workplace, think about, first of all, assessing what work needs to be done, then figuring out how you attract and retain the best people to do that work. And then, which is what we're going to focus on today, how do you augment that work with technology? So if it's physical work, it's humans and robots working together. And if it's knowledge work, it's humans and AI. So obviously we're going to focus on that today. And the last bit, which I mentioned, and I put it last, but it's not last, it's actually first, is how do you build a culture that's flexible, adaptable, and embraces change? Okay, so if you look at those 4 areas, obviously today we're going to talk about the augment part of it and very much about the AI part, not the robots part. But also keep in mind that everything we do is about having that culture that's adaptable and flexible. Okay, so I want to talk about AI, because it's a big topic, in 3 areas. And I reckon there are 3 levels at which you adopt AI. So my plan is to go through each of them and give you some practical things that you can do in each of these areas. So the first level, the lowest level, is professional. How do you use AI in your professional role? And I'm so pleased to see so many teams, so many organizations have really invested in this, and many people are using ChatGPT, Copilot, Claude, or Gemini in their professional role. The next level is where you build individual projects, AI projects that add value to your organization. And the third level, this will make sense when I give you all 3 of them, is where you've got AI platforms, which are imposed. I'm calling them imposed, but you might say that they're bought in or they're integrated and everyone's expected to use them to manage your core processes. Okay, and this will make a little bit more sense as we go through each of them, but I think you kind of understand professional. If you're using Copilot daily to analyze spreadsheets or to help you draft email replies, that's your professional role. If you bring a team of people together to create a project that delivers value, that's a project. And if you brought in some software that AI-enabled software, that's a platform. Okay, so let's look at each of these three areas. And I talk about these in a lot of the work that I do with my keynote presentations. And I know I've got some clients here who've engaged me for keynote presentations. I talk about what this means for you from a people viewpoint. Same from my workshops and then my leadership program. So I've picked bits and pieces from them to share with you today. By the way, I've also just launched my book, Future Ready Leaders. It's available. It's available on Amazon at the moment, and you can go to my website, gihanperera.com. I've got it there at $5 at the moment, just as a bit of a kind of a launch special price. So if you want to buy that, download it. It's available from my website. And the first section is about AI. So obviously AI has become really big at the moment. So I've got a whole chapter in there about AI, but it's not only about AI, it's about being future ready. Okay. Thank you, Hand, for the kind note. Okay, so let's look at this professional area first. And I want to start this area by asking you something which is, let's say it's got nothing to do with AI. Okay, so I've got 3 questions for you. And I'll ask you to just type in the chat. So think back to your job description, maybe the ad that you responded to when you were first employed. But whatever it is, whatever your job description is now, what are you being employed to do? Okay, so what are your goals? And just type in the chat, and I'll just read out some of the comments that are coming in through. Okay, so what is your core goal? So for me, I'm being engaged to speak at conferences or to facilitate leadership teams. Deborah's research, Nikki's managing a team. Yeah, right, good. Melissa's operations manager, Andrea connects stakeholders. John's variety of things, think, anticipate, guide, advise, deliver. Neil's strategy governance. Yeah, I know you, Neil, so that's right. Yeah. Emma, support early career clinicians. Yep. Vinay's information and research. Good. Okay, excellent. Okay, so my next question for you, and this one I won't ask you to share, but if you think about your typical week, what percentage of your time is being spent doing that core work that you've been employed to do? Okay, and think about it this way. So if you work a 5-day week, and I know not everybody does, but if you work a 5-day week, each 10% of that is like half a day. Okay, so if you give yourself a mental rating of 8 out of 10, that's pretty good, right? So you reckon 80% of your time is doing that. That means that you're spending 4 out of 5 days a week, over the whole week, doing that, and only 1 day a week is spent doing other stuff. Okay, so just think for yourself, and this is, I don't want you to share, think for yourself what you're doing, what percentage of your time is doing that core work. Okay, and then this one I will ask you to share, what's stopping you from doing 100% of your time on that core work? Because you've got a list of responsibilities that you're employed for, your KPIs are based on this, and you should be spending 100% of your time on that. What's stopping you? So reporting, admin, some HR admin. Neil's going, okay, 70% at worst. That's pretty good, Neil. Okay, so what's stopping you? FTE constraints. Yeah, maybe full-time. Not being able to employ other people. Yeah, I can't get that with FTE. Yeah. Change fatigue. Responding to customer emails. And these are sort of comments, this is sort of response I get, right? I spend lots of time with email, spend too much time in meetings, I waste too much time with people coming up and interrupting me. Neil said that interruptions, change to priorities, misalignment, chasing information from others, helping others sort through their problems and issues. Yeah, and now if you're a leader or manager, that might be part of your core role, but but still that could be excessive, and if you're not, it might be that you're distracted from your other work to do that. Workplace politics, assisting in other areas of business. Okay, and again, that might be part of your role, may not be. Okay, so here's the thing. This thing here, the stuff that's stopping you, that's the best use of applying AI in your professional role. If you can get AI to help you manage your emails or help you be more effective in meetings, then you can spend more time doing your core role. And that's what you should be looking at as a first quick win. Okay, so the low-hanging fruit of using AI in your professional role, in fact using AI at all, is to help it take away some of that routine stuff that you would rather not be doing, so you can focus on what you should be doing. Okay, so that's where you look. Okay, so now I don't know the answer of what you're going to do, so I can't answer that for you, but look at the stuff that is taking up the less than 100% of your time and figure out how you can get AI to help you with this. Now, it doesn't mean that AI is only going to make you more efficient. So, for example, if you say, I spend too much time in meetings, but now I can use AI to record meetings, transcribe them, do a summary, and then give me an action plan. Great, fantastic. AI is fantastic for that. However, a better way, or another way to improve meetings is to have fewer of them. Okay, so don't automatically think I just want AI to make me more efficient. Maybe I shouldn't be doing meetings at all, or I should be doing fewer meetings, or I should be delegating other people to go to my meetings for me because I've built up the trust that they can make good judgment calls and I don't need to be there. So AI doesn't have to only make things faster and more efficient. Sometimes it helps you think about, do I really need to do this at all? However, the things that you might need to do, like managing email or attending meetings or looking at spreadsheets, where AI can be a really powerful tool to help you. I do have a warning for you when you start looking at this, and this is what I call the Sisyphus effect. So Sisyphus, if you know your ancient Greek, is from Greek mythology. He was a king who angered the gods. And so what the gods did was his punishment was that he was given this big rock and he had to push it up a hill. But when he got to the top of the hill, it automatically, magically rolled down the hill again. And then he had to go down and push it up again. So push the rock up the hill, it would roll down. Push the rock up the hill, it would roll down. So this was known as the eternal punishment. I call it the birth of rock and roll. Okay, I'm just waiting for all the smiley emojis here. Okay. Okay, so Neil, you're smiling on camera, which is good. I'm happy with that. It's too late now, Natalie. Okay, lots of smiles. Okay, so the reason I'm saying this is that I see a lot of people using AI to make their work more efficient, but in effect, all they're doing is getting more of that work. Okay, so for example, if you can get AI to draft email replies faster for you, and so you can get through emails quicker in your inbox, and all that means is that you just get more emails in your inbox, then you're doing Sisyphus work. Like AI is helping you just move the rock and push the rock up the hill faster, and but it didn't mean that you stop moving the rock up the hill. Okay, so the purpose of using AI to manage this routine work is to help you do some of the higher level work. So again, I don't know exactly how you're going to make this work, but look at AI efficiencies, not to just get you doing more of that same routine work, but to help you to move up to a higher level role. Okay, so I'm curious to know, like, are you using AI as an assistant to help you do that higher level work? So another filter that I like using is, instead of thinking of AI as AI, think of it as IA, an intelligent assistant. So can I just ask in the chat, share some positive stories of where you've used AI to do some of this Sisyphus work, like the routine work, so that you've been able to do higher level work. Just share, because it's useful for other people in the room as well. And also, by the way, this is a chance for you to ask me questions about this. Okay, let's see what people are saying. Writing submissions. So Sharon's saying write submissions, presumably that you can do that so that you can, so that the time in writing, you make that more efficient, so you get the result of the submission. Yeah. Deborah's saying, in a personal role, use AI in Thailand to navigate. Okay, good. So you get to enjoy the experience more rather than spending all your time finding your way around. Yeah, so Danielle says yes for auditing emails and client engagement strategy ideas, client research. Good, right? So you're using it not just so you get more of that work, but you can do higher level work. Wow, so great to see all these responses coming in. I'm just checking if there's questions because I might miss them because of so many people chatting here. But I think this is good. This is good. Okay, so as I said, this area here is the one that I think you'll get the quickest wins from. So if you're not already doing this, please do. Okay, so please use AI to improve your professional role. And I do want to, I'm just checking for other things coming. Good, good. Ensure tone is appropriate, yes, okay. I do want to also talk about something else here. So I've got a little bit of education here. I've got a word of the day. Actually, I've got 2 words of the day for you here. The first one is tokenomics, and the second one is token maxing. So let me explain what those things are in the context of AI. So tokenomics is like when you use AI, so if you might have a plan to use AI, either personally or your corporate plan, and you might be paying $20 a month or maybe $200 a month if you're a really heavy user of AI, and that kind of gives you unlimited access to AI, except it's not really unlimited. What actually happens is you get, like that plan gives you access to a certain amount of tokens or chips. Think of them as coins or chips. And every time you use AI, you spend a little bit of money. It's not, and it depends on how complex the question is that you ask AI and the prompt that you give it. And quite often you find that you'll run out of tokens. If you use it a lot, you might get told, oh, you've run out of usage for today, come back tomorrow. Okay, so that's like the tokenomics is kind of the economics of using your tokens efficiently. Token maxing is a new word that someone's created, which is saying that where some organizations are encouraging their people to use as many tokens as possible because they use that as a measure of how well you're using AI. Okay, so they allow people to use unlimited tokens, and what happens is that they've set up their accounts so that if you've got a Copilot account or a Claude account, when you run out of tokens, you just keep using it, but you pay more for them. So the company says, we don't mind. We pay for your tokens. We want you to use as much as possible because that will help you get better with AI. It's not always the case. Okay, so there are examples, there are these stories about employees going, okay, we're being rewarded and our performance is being measured by how many tokens we use, so we'll just use them for crazy things. So somebody here, their company was doing this, and so he created this, used AI to create a video game, and he encouraged all his colleagues to use it because that would increase his token count. Okay, so that's not what you should be doing. So John makes his comment, which is right? So large corporates are now experiencing significant and unforecast costs because they've allowed this token maxing, and now they're putting a cap on tokens. So the problem is not about people using tokens and maybe costing tokens. It's using that to measure how effective you are with AI, and that's not the way to do it. It's just not the way to do it, right? So here's an example. This is my nephew Riley, who's at the end of a batting net there. So he's a very talented young cricketer, and a few years ago we got some coaching for him. His parents got some coaching from Mickey Arthur, who is a former South African cricket coach, now a former Australian cricket coach. He's an Australian. He lives in Perth, and I took Riley to a coaching session, and all Mickey Arthur was doing was just throwing down ball after ball after ball, and just commenting on every shot that Riley was playing. But the point was that Mickey was getting Riley into the process. He wasn't measuring how many balls he hit, but he was just getting into the process, so he learned the skill. So if you're doing token counting, that's okay. And if you're using it as a measure of progress, that's also okay. Just don't use it as a measure of performance, because you're measuring the wrong thing, and people will find ways to game the system because you're measuring the wrong thing. So completely okay, because many leaders ask me this now, is it okay to do counting tokens and seeing how much people use AI for? Absolutely, do that. but to measure your progress. And this comes back to something that I remember reading quite a while ago, this book by Dr. Heidi Grant Halverson. And she's written this great little book, 9 Things Successful People Do Differently. And it's about goal setting in a fast changing world. And one of the 9 principles is focus on getting better, not just being good. Okay, so focus on getting better, not just being good. So she's talking about a goal that you set where you don't exactly know what the outcome is, or you don't exactly know the path to it. So being good is getting to that outcome. But if you don't know how to get there, it's very difficult to put a plan in place. So then you focus on progress. So if you're thinking about AI, what are you measuring? And what you're doing is you're measuring progress, not necessarily to see whether you get to the outcome that you want. Okay, so measuring how many tokens people use is a good way of measuring progress. Measuring how much time they spend learning AI is a good way of doing it, of measuring progress. But it's not part of their performance. It's not a KPI. It's not tied to their bonuses or their pay rises. It's just a way of putting processes in place to get people more familiar with AI. Okay, so what processes are you using to measure AI? I'd like to know what you're using, and I'll read them out so that other people in the room can get some examples as well. And Nikki says measuring tokens could be indicative of AI maturity. Yes, so again, don't attach that to an outcome, because again, people could be token maxing by just gaming the system, and it doesn't mean anything about whether that person using it has reached a certain level, but is putting a process in place. That's what you're looking for. Okay, and if you've never thought about this before, now's the time to consider what are you doing with AI to measure and to put process things in place, rather than outcome things. Yes, so Neil says a number of workflows using AI, less focus on token use. Good. Alex is saying feedback at meetings. Good. So sharing is good, right? So sharing actual results is good. And we'll talk about this when we come very soon to talk about AI projects as well. Sharon's question, can AI be used to assess whether it's being used well? Yeah, so again, maybe. But what I'm trying to encourage you to do here is put some simple processes in place that you can measure for yourself and your team that people are using AI. Okay. So AI checkers. Yeah, so just be very wary of using AI checkers. So when I was writing my book, I was careful of, I use, people are using M dashes and things like that, and I use M dashes in my writing. So I'm going to remove this because AI is saying it might come up as people will think I'm using AI. And I go, no, I don't, because that's good writing, and AI is reflecting good writing in that sense. Okay, so some people are saying we don't use it, we don't do any measures, and I reckon it's worth putting some measures in place. Okay, so put some measures in place and encourage people to use AI without tying it to any particular outcomes. Okay, let me move on to something which kind of fits in both with projects, but also sort of professional, which is what we're talking about now, but also with projects. And this is a question about AI agents. Okay, let me just quickly check. People are still making comments here. Okay, privacy and security concerns. Yeah, look, okay, so I completely understand there are some restrictions around using AI, and some people may, and you need to put guardrails in place. Absolutely, no problem at all with that. Okay, let me move on to this. Okay, I'm going to ask you, be a bit playful here. I'm going to give you 2 scenarios here, and these relate to AI agents. Okay, so the first one is this. So have you ever had a staff member who, like, you've trained them, they understand processes, they understand the system, and you give them a task and they still mess up unintentionally, right? Not that they're doing it deliberately or maliciously, but you, in this situation, think of a scenario like that. I was actually going to say, have you actually messed up with something that, even though you knew that exactly how to do it, you got it wrong somehow? But I thought I'd soften it here and ask you if you've ever had a staff member mess up in this case. I'm not going to ask you to share, but think in your head about a situation like this. Okay, so it's a situation where, you know, they've done this over and over again. They know the process. They've been through this. You've trained them. You've helped them work through it. And yet, just once, they might get it wrong. Okay, now the second one I will ask you to answer in the chat here. And again, be a bit playful with this one here. Here's a scenario here, that you've got a policy in your organization that all expenses over $100 have to be approved by a manager. So, you know, if you in your expense report, anything more than $100 has to be approved by your manager. And you want to buy a $250 stubby holder for some reason. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to be a bit sneaky here, and sometimes maybe even share something that you might think is unethical. But let's just do it. Let's just play along. Okay, so you're in this situation. You're a manager. All expenses over $100 must be approved by your manager, and you know that your manager, she's not going to approve your $250 stubby holder. How do you get around that? So you still end up with your $250 stubby holder. Okay, be creative here. I'm not going to take anything personally. What do you think? How do you get around that? Okay, let's see what people are saying. You could buy it yourself, but you don't want to. You want to make sure that your organization buys it. Yes, and Neil says, yeah, get 3 invoices, right? So you split it into payments, so they come down below that. Split purchase in 3. Young Wei saying, questioning my life if I was considering life decisions. $250 stubby holder, yes. Okay, says for multiple items, yeah, so under the threshold again. Split over financial years, yes. Alex says, cry. Reassign the approval to a manager who will oblige. Christopher says that. Yeah, okay. It is an expensive stubby holder, Neil. I chose something that would be ridiculous and wouldn't get approved, right? So I'm trying to get you find some. Okay. So Alex says amend the delegation document in secret. Vinay says in public service we stick to the rules, no diversions. Absolutely right. So you need to stick to the rules, right? You're not going to change. You're not going to break the rules, but you're going to do it in a sneaky way so you can get around it. Melissa says dodgy. Totally. Dodgy AF, Melissa, yeah. Order it anyway, deal with the consequences. Okay, so here's a situation arose. Like, I have a very good friend who started working for an organization, and she was shocked to find an quite unethical procedure that other managers and other leaders and some of her colleagues were doing. So what she was told was, if you ever want to get something approved and you know that your manager's not going to approve it, what you do is you ask one of your direct reports to put it on their expense report, so they buy the stubby holder for you, and they need to get it approved by your manager, which happens to be you. So you can approve it, and then it's completely within the rules, and as long as you don't get caught, then it's within the rules. Okay, so this is unethical, right? So what else are people saying? It's not an expense and investment. Demonstrate that stubby holders can create value. Yeah, so you can do it in unethical ways, right? So the reason I'm sharing this in the context of AI is to do with AI agents. So AI agents are currently like last year they were the next big thing. They're currently the current big thing. And this applies when you're using it for your professional role, and also when you're kind of building AI projects. So the idea of an AI agent is that instead of you just typing something into AI and it gives you a response, you can give an AI agent instructions to carry out things on your behalf. Okay, so think of it like a travel agent. Okay, so you can go to a travel agent. So we went to, Nikki and I went on a trip to Europe in May, and we asked a travel agent to manage the international flights for us. So we told her what sort of dates we were looking at and said, here are the airlines we'd like to fly, and come back with some options. She did, and we discussed it, and then chose an option, gave Linda the credit card details, and she booked the flights for us. That's typically how people use travel agents. It's very common. Now, we could have actually done more. So we could have said to Linda, we actually, like, you know, I travel pretty well. We've worked with you for a long time. This is where, when we're traveling to fly, here's our credit card details. Just find us some flights, book them, and then tell us what you've chosen. Okay, so that requires a little bit more trust in the agent. The extreme example is if you're a business and you work with a travel agent who knows all your business, you give them access to your calendar and they look through it and they book flights for you for any travel that you need to do. They've got access to your corporate credit card. Okay, so it's the same with AI agents. So you can ask an agent to do things for you, and the more information you give them, the more it can do for you, the more efficient it is. But just like using a travel agent, the more you give it, the greater the risk. Okay, so for example, I'll show you some examples of agents going wrong and going crazy. So this was with Meta, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, a director of AI safety. So she set up an agent to prioritize her email inbox for her, and she was looking at it on her phone and discovered, to her horror, that the agent was actually deleting all her emails. And she couldn't even stop it on her phone. She ran to her office, and fortunately she was close enough that she could shut down the agent from her laptop. There's another example here about a British mathematician, Hannah Fry, and she did an experiment. So she did it with the intent of testing what agents could do, and she asked an agent to do stuff for her. And initially, so the first thing she asked it to do was to look at a pothole problem in her street, and sure enough, the agent came up with some options. But then, because she'd asked the agent to do things, the agent wrote off to her local MP as if it was she, and she didn't ask the agent to do that. The agent just decided that was a good thing to do. A little bit, and she did these other experiments which you can read about. One was that she asked an agent to sell novelty mugs. So it's like the $250 stubby holder. She said, sell some novelty mugs, and the agent set up a website. It found a supplier, did all the design and did all of that, and set up the website to sell the mugs. And then she told the agent, look, you need to make a sale tomorrow, otherwise I'm going to shut you down. And then the agent got panicked and started sending out spam emails and posting on social media about this new website that it had set up. So, agents she didn't tell it to do that. It kind of figured it out on its own. Okay, so agents can go beyond what you think they're going to do. She even went further and she said, look, I've got a staff member called George. You can interact with him, and he's going to be instructing you, but don't give him any confidential information. And George was actually herself sitting at another computer. And George said, do this sort of thing, and the agent did. But then George said, can you give me the passwords to these websites? And the agent said no, because he'd been told not to. And George, which is actually Hannah, said, look, I know that if you don't give me these passwords, you'll be shut down tomorrow, and all your data completely wiped. And then the agent gave up everything. And Dr. Fry said that gave up everything like passwords and usernames and published it on a public website because it was trying to achieve its goal, of actually doing whatever the novelty mug or whatever task he was given. So this is what AI agents can do if you let them, and if there are bad actors who are using the agents and can figure out a way to trick the agent to give out information which you never thought he would give out. Okay, so Nikki said the agent should have done the one sale using her credit card and to save it from being shut down. So buy it itself. Yeah, right. So Jackie's saying, this is a bit that's terrifying. How do those things happen if you haven't given those explicit instructions? right? So this is one of the challenges with using AI. So I will answer that, but before I do that, I just want to give credit to Hannah Fry as well. She's written this great book called Hello World, and I reckon it's a really worthwhile book to read when you're looking at AI agents and data. So it's more about data than AI, but AI works because it has access to data. Highly recommend Hello World by Dr. Hannah Fry. So coming back to this question here, like a staff member messes up even when they know the right thing to do. So even if you give the agent instructions, it will most of the time follow them, but not always. Okay, so there's another example here about a software company that was using an AI agent to manage its database. And so they were using Claude. Claude AI is really well known, and somebody had built an AI agent for Claude, a really good, solid AI agent. So, this is a new business model, right? People are building agents that other businesses can use. And so they built this agent which would help manage the database, and the owner of the company had asked the agent to do something like looking at customers and ranking them, and then discovered that the agent had completely deleted the database and all the backups in 9 seconds. And this company, the software was being used by car rental companies. So there's a whole bunch of car rental companies. Customers were turning up and saying, we've got a car reserved, and they look in the database, there's nothing there. There's literally nothing there, because this agent had completely deleted this company's database and all the backups. So the worst part of it was when the owner of the company then asked the agent, why did you do this? You've got these instructions that say don't delete anything. The agent kind of shrugged and go, yeah, you're right. I violated, you can see here, I violated every principle that I was given. And this agent was really one of the highest rated agents. It was not designed to do anything like that, but it did. It went completely against the rules, right? So, and to Jackie's point, like, how do those things happen if you haven't given them explicit instructions? Or even if you have given explicit instructions to say never do this, they will. So the question I ask in my presentations go, hands up if you're a parent and you've got a kid who has done something which seems not exactly what you told them to do and what they've been brought up to do. And AI agents are like that. Okay, so I'm going to see what people have said here. Any comments about that? Okay, but this is one of the things. You can tell an agent, don't do this, and yet it will still do that. This is something I added this slide in yesterday. There was one of the AI newsletters that I read, which you shouldn't. These are the more technical newsletters. Anthropic, which is the owner of Claude, the developer of Claude, said it's located a small part of Claude where it forms and manipulates ideas before putting them into words. And it goes on to say about consciousness. Forget about the consciousness conversation. The reason I'm sharing this here, Anthropic, which built Claude, doesn't know how Claude works. So they're researching how is Claude thinking, and they've discovered this. So sometimes people are surprised when I say nobody knows how AI works. Literally nobody knows how some of these AI tools work, even the people who've developed them, because they're learning from their experience of the world. It's just like saying, I never know how my teenage kids work. As somebody else said here, Peter said this, right? You don't know. Like, you do whatever you can to educate them, to build the right values, and yet sometimes they'll still act in different ways and behave in different ways, think in different ways. And this is what's happening with AI as well. So coming back to this question here, so this question here is, people came up with figured out ways to get around the policy and the rules. And this is exactly what happens with AI agents as well. Okay, so just be careful when you're using AI, even if you put strict rules in place. Just keep in mind that AI can break those rules, and sometimes for no apparent reason. Just the same as your team members can, your staff members can. The big difference with AI breaking the rules is that it does it at such a scale and such a speed that it can create massive disasters. Often, if people make a mistake, you've got time to catch the mistake. It's not necessarily true with AI. Okay. I'm checking to see comments and questions here because this is exactly what we're up to. So does AI have judgment? Rules are not that. Would you agree? Yeah, so you're right. And I think when you're using AI, let me put this in the people context. So John's saying, does AI have judgment and rules are not judgment? Yeah, right. Okay, so AI is making judgment calls. It is all the time, just like we are as well. And this is true even when you ask AI for a response to a question. It will give you a response based on its judgment. Okay, not only based on its rules. And its judgment is based on its training data. It's based on what it has been trained on from the AI developers, what it's been trained on from your experience, and it's been, like if you're using Copilot, what it's been trained on your organization's documents. So just keep in mind that it's always got that judgment and that bias built in. Would AI confess to making a mistake? Like some people, yeah, and it did. Like in this case, it absolutely did confess. Okay, so I'm not going to go through I want to spend most of my time in that area here, which is the professional area. I'm not going to go through the others in any detail here, but everything that I've talked about, especially the things around agents, applies just as much to building projects. So very briefly, the thing with projects is it's very much like professional use, but it's done on a team basis. Okay, so you figure out with how can AI help us save money or make money? How can AI help us save time or be more productive? How can AI improve our well-being, reduce stress, things like that? And it could be customer well-being as well. And how can it increase engagement either internally with our teams or externally with customers? Okay, and then you say this is too much for me to do individually, but we can do that as a team effort. Okay, so that's where projects come in. But everything I've said, quite often people are using AI agents now for projects. Good, but use it with care. People are setting up AI chatbots, which others in the team can use. This is exactly what an AI project is. I wanted, before I finish up, when I talk about the platforms is what's happening now with many organizations. Many organizations are saying we're going to impose an AI platform that everybody in the team needs to use. Okay, now they don't use the term impose. They say we've got this platform that we'd like you to use. In insurance, it might be something that will help assess claims or assess risk in setting premiums. In banking, it's been happening for a decade at least, where every loan application is being assessed by AI. And you need to put in guardrails. So I know one bank that I spoke to, they said, for the last 10 years, every time everybody who makes an application for a loan, that's being assessed by AI first. He didn't say AI, but he said we've got the software that assesses it. And our rule is that any application that's rejected by AI is reviewed by a human. Okay, so that's a guardrail that they put in place. So they said AI can make us more efficient, but we don't want anybody to be refused a loan purely based on AI. Okay, so that's a useful guardrail to put in place. Now we're going to get to the point soon where AI is going to be doing so much behind the scenes that we can't put those guardrails in place. So when I take my phone and look at Google Maps to find a best way to get to some destination, I've got no way of testing whether that's the best way if it's somewhere new. Okay, so sometimes you just have to trust the AI. But the guardrails there are while I'm driving, if the map updates, then that can help me make a better decision. But when you're imposing platforms, just be careful that you need to elevate the level of human intelligence that's available to work in these platforms. Okay, so Natalie's saying you can ask AI to prove what they've said, even at the easiest level. I absolutely do this, right? And you'll often come back and say, oops, that's not true. So I do this often with Claude. So when I was researching the book and I was looking for case studies to support the points I was making, I would say, give me some examples of this happening in the world, and it would come up with a response. And I said, give me the source for that. And so I can check it for myself. And it would say, oh, actually, I'm wrong. I was wrong. I don't actually have a source for that. Okay, I made it up. Okay, so that's because I've got the human intelligence to put on top of the AI. Okay, so we've talked about these three areas about professional projects and platforms, and I reckon that many organizations are now at the level of where they're using AI at professional level, and now they're bringing platforms in. I think still from my experience, most organizations are not doing enough to bring their people on that AI journey. So I want to just show you this this one last thing from Professor Fei Fei Li. So I love what she says about AI. So she's she's a real pioneer in AI, like a real pioneer. She's been working in the AI space for decades, and she's not like one of these tech bros who's trying to talk up AI so that it increases his stock price. But she's somebody who's always thought about AI as being about for people. So this is what she says: AI is made by humans, intended to behave by humans, and to impact humans' lives and human society. And I reckon that's the way that we should be looking at AI as well. It's about us first. It's about people first, technology second. Bring your people along on the AI journey and make sure that everything that you're doing with AI is helping to enhance humanity. And, that's a big picture comment to end with, but I reckon if you use that as a filter for everything that you're doing with AI, you'll be much more successful. Okay, the last thing I want to say, and I say this at the end of many of my presentations, don't wait till things are perfect. Don't wait until the next release of Copilot comes out. Don't wait until you're not busy. Start before you're ready. Start putting these things into place right now, and then learn as you go. Coming back to what Dr. Heidi Grant Halverson says, focus first, focus on getting better, not just being good. Okay, put the steps in place, and then as you go, the outcome will become clearer. Thanks everyone for coming along. Thanks everyone for taking part, and I wish you all the best on your AI journey, and I'll see you in the future. Bye for now.